So we go step back into kind of physically built non-virtual architecture, and just a short presentation of this house in Riedikon, that's at the Greifensee, close to Zurich. I'm not going to go in detail about the design of the house, but rather point out the aspect which has more to do with the digital and how we employ that here in a quite subtle strategy. So this house here stands in the middle of a so-called Dorf village zone, so it had high demands on how it needed to be shaped volumetrically. Here you see it from the top, you see that it basically needed to have a gable roof. It had a certain minimal width and depth which it needed to have. So basically the building rules define a lot of how such a house is to be designed. We started to play with these rules in a number of senses, and what's most important is probably condensed in this facade. Imagine the rule, if you build there, is that your maximum window size can be 1.5 square meters. So something like this. And it should be a high rectangle, so it cannot be horizontally aligned. And then you can also have doors, and you can have one or multiple, let's say, sliding windows or larger openings to the garden or to a terrace. That's basically the rules. So that immediately gives you a sense of the space that this house will have, right? It's a house with punctuated windows where you look through. But that's not the house that we were imagining. And by a previous house, which I had built previously to us, working together, which is just beside this house, we figured out that there is a trick around those rules. Basically, if you put timber slats in front of glass, such a facade is considered a timber facade. So actually, to building law, there is no window. So, and with this house, this idea, which I had tested priorly, is here radicalized. So this house officially has 2 doors on the back side and 1 window there to the garden, and otherwise it's opaque. But if you look closely, all around in the top floor, it's completely opened, and it has very large windows. You see it from here to over there in the ground floor. That then gave the question, well, what is this facade? So we have a permanent kind of a veil, a Schleier, and a Verhüllung around this house. What can we do with this? Didn't have an enormous budget for it. And we thought we treat it in the following way. Basically, where we're taking a slat and we're milling away the short side of the slat, thinning it out at the center point of the windows behind. And if you look at this over the entire unrolling of the facade, this is how it looks. So you get a sense that these slats, if you would put them side by side, kind of thin out exactly where the windows are. So you maximize the light into the space where you thin them out. But you do something else because these slats stand away from the house, so not like they're drawn up here. They're drawn like this, but they're put like this in front of the house. That means if you're inside, you maximize your possibilities to open your view laterally, while if they are not cut, then you basically only can look out straight. So that's what this kind of profiling of this slat does. The process was very simple. So each slat was milled twice. This is how it works. It's actually a hobel. I don't know the word in English. So it's just one movement over the timber slab. It tilts. This was an early test. Sorry for the bad video quality. Very simple movement. Then we had the number, I think in the final production was 7 slabs, side by side, one pass, flip it, one pass. So very straightforward. And the result, I would like to show the video, maybe you have already seen it here, is then this house, which gets quite a delicate kind of skin by this simple treatment, where you can sense this transparency. And from outside, it looks actually quite closed. Only if you take the right angles, you start to see that it has this transparency. And from inside, it's an extremely open house. And because your eye tends to focus on what it wants to see, after a while, you don't see the slats anymore. If you want to see them, you see them, right? It's like a prism. Depending on your attitude, right? Yeah, depending on your attitude, it shifts the perception of the space. You see that this kind of almost ellipses start to form. It's a bit hard to represent visually. It's nice to see it in real life, but I think you get a sense of it. So I think with this project, maybe we can say it's also beautiful to just do very little with the digital. You don't always need to do very complex and demanding things. And here you see an impression from the inside. And if you compare it to the impression from the outside, it's quite a drastic difference. These openings are also cut in a certain angle, but that's basically non-representative. You cannot film it, basically, but it means that to certain directions there is a tendency of the facade to open more. That's actually where it's unbuilt, where you see the lake, etc. And to other directions, the facade closes more. That's where the built area is. Here you see the other house, which I built actually during my studies. So, you recognize the table? You can guess whose house it is? Good. Good. So this was kind of the first sequence of early projects. You've seen that we've been working with milling, with subtractive processes which were available, which we started to interpret with a certain approach with data. And then a new chapter in our work started, the robot.